So let me give you a bit of background to myself, and then I'll talk to you a bit about the assessment. So I'm a speech and language therapist. My bag is acquired adult neurology. I worked for many years, about 10 years, in clinical practice, almost exclusively. And then I moved over into research. I work with UCL and City, and I spent a lot of time in the voluntary sector, notably with Connect. Those of you who are adult therapists, I hope, might remember Connect. And over the last sort of 5, 6, 7 years, maybe, I've not had formal employment. I've just done bits and bobs of various different things. And so that's my background, and my passions are user involvement and co-production, assessment, outcome measures, chocolate, and my dog. And there she is. And both of us are aging very rapidly, unfortunately. Bit of background to the assessment that I'm going to talk about. So those of you who are adult speech therapists interested in neurology may well know about the comprehensive aphasia test. So I co-wrote this with David Howard and Gillian Porter. And the final section of that is the disability questionnaire. That was produced, it's very sort of late on in a research project which developed the CAT. The first 2 sections of the CAT were being trialed and were being very successful, but it became clear to me particularly that we had nothing about disability and the perception of people who had aphasia, and that was a real absence. And so I produced that disability questionnaire very, very rapidly, without any, just based purely on clinical judgment and with no co-production whatsoever. It was a long time ago, and I was much less experienced, and we couldn't involve people at that time. We didn't have time. So the disability questionnaire is the beginning of the aphasia impact questionnaire, which is what I'm going to talk about latterly. Having finished the research project that gave birth to the CAT, I was then much more interested in taking forward information relating to social model theory and involving people with aphasia in co-production. And so I took the disability questionnaire to about 5 people within an advisory group, and we spent about 2 years gaining views of other people with aphasia and making an assessment which was acceptable and accessible to people who had aphasia rather than to therapists, but hopefully useful to both. That was the communication disability profile. It had 55 questions. It was based on pictorial rating scales. We included participation and emotional consequences, both negative and positive. And we included barriers and facilitators, which weren't rated, but were very much part of the assessment. So the CDP was published by Connect, and some way through Connect's development, we needed to do an evaluation, and they needed a short assessment to evaluate Connect's impact. And so I reduced the aphasia impact questionnaire. And again, I took it to people with aphasia and I said, look, here are all the questions. We've got to make it really short. Which ones are we going to use? And so it then became what is known as the aphasia impact questionnaire, just 21 questions used in-house by Connect and validated. I have put all the information about validation at the end of this slide in a 1-slide poster. So that's available for you if you're interested, but I'm not going to focus on any of that. I then had some years where things were a bit of a nightmare, really, both professionally and personally. I had actually left Connect, and Connect failed to secure enough funding to continue. So it stopped trading, as it were. And so did, therefore, the AIQ cease to have any significance either, along with so much else that Connect had contributed. But also, I had some issues in my family as well. My daughter was diagnosed with cancer, and so we had many years of treatment. So it was a bit of an interregnum in terms of doing anything in relation to aphasia testing. So everything went a bit quiet. But then we came out of that phase, and I decided that we'd still got this assessment, and that people were asking me when I raised my head above the parapet what had happened to it. And so I decided I would just make it freely available to everybody. So I developed a website in 2018, and the AIQ21, the Aphasia Impact Questionnaire, then became available to download. Since then, it's been downloaded over 500 times across 28 different countries. So that's been really great that it's been so well received. I've been out of speech and language therapy really since that time, but it became clear from our publishers that they wanted to do an updated version of the CAT, and I particularly wanted to get rid of the disability questionnaire and give it the more updated version of the AIQ21, or concise. It's the same thing. And so I said, could we include that? And I talked to them also about the communication disability profile. And I said, look, there's all these other items too, which I think are really, I don't want to lose them. How can we include that? And they said, well, maybe we can think of having 2 different final sections, which people can choose from. So we could have a short version and we could have a long version. So I'm going to tell you about both of those. So that's the background to the Aphasia Impact Questionnaire in its sort of paper form. And that's just to say that there's the website and there's the photo of the website, and those, it's going to be included in the comprehensive aphasia test too. So if you look at the design, and for those of you who know the disability questionnaire, you can see that some of you may know the AIQ, but I'm assuming that not everybody does. You can see that the design is very different. And the design was one of the main features that people with aphasia, while we were co-producing this, was saying was crucial. So most important thing, of course, is that it's a pictorial rating scale. And we have given a diversity to the rating scales. So the person chooses whether they want the male, female version, or whatever ethnicity that they feel is the most appropriate. You can see that it's going to be a very repetitive format, all things relating to accessibility and aphasia friendliness. So it's bold text, it's large sans serif text. There are simple adult drawings which support the main message for each question. There's lots of white space. So all the things that we all know support accessibility. And within the Aphasia Impact Questionnaire 21, the concise version, the areas that we ask questions on relate to communication, participation, and well-being. And there are 6 questions which relate to how easy it is for that person during the last week to talk to a person closest to them, how easy for that person during the last week to talk to a stranger, understand those people, write to a friend, read. And then, having rated all of those areas, can the person then tell us how easy it is, given those limitations, to engage in life? So to engage in things that they have to do, and to engage in positive things that they want to do, and how those things affect family and friends, relationship with family and friends. And then there's a well-being section, which has got mainly negative emotions. Again, there was a lot of consultation about this. These emotions are taken from in-depth interviews of about 25 people and qualitative analysis of those, so that we came out with a very large array of emotions, and we needed to decide which of these was going to be the most important, and that's what my advisory group were able to do. And they said that this was the right sort of balance. So I know therapists can feel it's very negative, and it can be very negative, but it can also be, it's representative of what my group wanted, for example. So we've seen a communication page. This is a section from the participation section, a question from the participation section. So this week, how easy is it for you to do things you have to do? And here are some examples of the sort of things we're talking about, and the person then rates themselves. I should point out that the scale at the bottom, these individual people behind the system give a score of 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, with 0 being no problem and 4 being it's impossible to do. And so a large score on the AIQ is a massive problem, and 0 is a little problem. There's controversy about that way of scoring it, but that's how it is at the moment, and I don't think we'll change that. So that's how one example of a participation section question, and this is an example of the emotional well-being section. So this week, have you felt angry? And again, we've got very angry as number 4 and not at all angry as 0, and hopefully it's either that or somewhere in between. So that's all the paper version. What about the online version? Because we had been planning to do an online version anyway, because part of CAT 2 and the development of CAT 2 is that all of CAT 2 is going to be available online. And so the AIQ was going to be part of that. But obviously, because of COVID, we've given that a bit more of a priority than it might otherwise have had. So this is what it looks like when you go onto the AIQ online. Now, this is in development, so we're not finished with this yet. And apart from anything else, the text is way too small, so I'm aware of that, and there's lots of things which are wrong with it, but I'm just going to give you where we're at the moment. So that's what it looks like. And as with Helen, there's a difference between what the participant sees and what the administrator sees. So what the participant sees, once they have logged in, they get an email link, they click the link, and then they have to consent, and then they're onto the AIQ administration. I'm going to go through the AIQ 21 first of all. So they see things like this. So we're going to talk about aphasia, what it's like for you living with aphasia, how does it affect what you do and how you feel, and we have a next and a previous button. We also have a button here which can skip a section if needs be. And then when that person has said, yes, okay, I understand, that's what we're doing, you encourage the person to choose which of these people best represents them. Now, it's not going to be perfect, but it gives some choice and some range of who you are. So all the ratings from now on will link in to who you decide best represents you. So that's that. So
can I just time check you? Sorry, it's
yep.
half past 3. So we've got about 15 minutes before we're due to start the next thing, and leaving some time for questions.
Okay, I will whiz through. Thank you.
Okay.
So this is an example of the communication section. That's an example of the participation section. This is an example of the emotional section. So you can see the sort of differences and similarities between the paper version and the online version. And then at the end, we're just working out how to score this. So that is what we've got at the moment in terms of the scores, although feedback from people with aphasia at the moment is saying, oh, that spidergram is a bit scary. What does the administrator see? So I'm sorry about the quality of this. I have now realized that my computer, the screenshot of it is very fuzzy. So I'm sorry about this. You don't need to know anything too detailed here, other than at your end, when the person with aphasia is doing their bit and choosing their people, you're seeing this. So you're seeing at the top that the participant is online, and you can control their screen using these buttons here. You can go forward a page, through a section, you can skip to any question you like, You can see here, can you see my cursor moving, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you can see here, this indicates that the person has answered a question, you know, that they've moved on from that question. There's the answer, there's the timing. And this purple blob here shows that the person is now looking at that page. So that's what you see as administrator. Just briefly in terms of the extended AIQ, so that was the AIQ 21. The items that are going to be different are, again, I'm not going to go through this in enormous detail, but just so that you know, it's got similar sections, although it has the added major section of non-rated external barriers and facilitators. It's significantly longer. AIQ 21 has 6 communication items, AIQ Plus has 20, and that's because there are hierarchically ordered items within the modalities. Sorry, I'll just go back. And there's an optional express yourself in contrast to how easy is it for you to talk. Not more detail needed there. So that's an example of expressing yourself. This is an example of the barriers and facilitators. So here, again, using the information from people who have aphasia and the qualitative interviews, they told us that things like glass barriers, cues, being under pressure, when things were too much, when being tired, these were all barriers to them participating in life. And then there were conversational barriers, people speaking too quickly, talking over one another. All of these are logged, and similarly with facilitators, if somebody listens to you or gives you extra time, or you have a computer, all of those help. And people can help or hinder. And so the person with aphasia goes through and they choose whether people do both, whether they help, whether they hinder. And the last one is, and how much is other things that you enjoy. And there are two questions in relation to what things you might enjoy. And this is both for people to end on a positive note, but also to give the possibility of things that they can enjoy, which they maybe haven't thought about. And if they're feeling very pessimistic about life with aphasia, it's the options of things which other people with aphasia enjoy that is being highlighted here. So I'm just having a quick look at what else I've got to say. So just to round up, really, both of these are going to be published, both the AIQ and the AIQ Plus are going to be published within the CAT2. They're going to be available in print and within an e-version. Why are we including both? Well, I feel that people may want to choose between them. The AIQ Concise, the print version of it has been validated, and I've included a link later on to show you the write-up of that in Aphasiology last year. It's a quick patient-recorded outcome measure, and it's designed to be used when time is limited. The extended AIQ is in beta firm and is not validated yet, but it's likely to be used much more flexibly. So you can use it as an assessment, as you did the CDP, but you could also use it in goal setting, in conversation, in narrative therapy. And I suspect that a clinical audience might use the extended version rather than the AIQ 21, the concise. So it depends, you know, it's up to you, but it gives you choice. It depends what the purpose of your assessment is and the tracking of the people and where the person is in their journey with aphasia, what your setting is and the time you've got available. There are going to be 3 modes of online administration for the AIQ. Local, where you're sitting with a computer, obviously non-COVID compliant. Remote, you're in different places, and you can share the same website. And solo, people with aphasia on their own doing the assessment. A situation which I had said, no, that's never going to happen. I don't want to do that. But people with aphasia are saying to me, actually, I would like to do that. So that's to be discussed. Timetable, basically it's ongoing. Print versions are almost entirely ready. Online versions are undergoing testing with both people with aphasia and therapists. If anybody wants to help me with that, get in contact. And both the AIQ and the AIQ 21 will be available within the within the CAT2 in 2021, we hope. So you can have a look for yourself if you want to. I've included the link there. You won't be able to see the scoring, but you will be able to see the AIQ itself, the participant view, and there's the link to the citation for the validation of the AIQ 21. So, any questions?
Thank you very much. That was lovely. Let me see. Do you need to be on a video call with the respondent and use the screen share? Do you need to be online at the same time as the respondent?
Well, that's one of the things that we are trialing at the moment. I think probably yes, because I like to be able to see the reactions of the person with aphasia. I like to be able to see what it is they're doing. You know, are they searching, or have they finished? And you know, they're waiting. They have forgotten that they have to click next or whatever. So yes, I think it's very useful too. I haven't tried it without that yet, so I'll let you know. Quite a lot of these questions, I'm afraid I'm going to have to say I don't know, because we're still field trialing everything.
Still in the testing phase.
Absolutely.
Another question from Lindsay Howard. For the e-version, do you think it will be possible to zoom in on individual pictures or reduce the number of items presented?
I think it should do. I hope that one can use the normal controls that you would use to zoom in within a screen. Accessibility is something that I'm always very live to. So one of the big developments that I'm going to be focusing on is ensuring that everything is much bigger. At the moment, it's all way too small. But I would think that, you know, you can manipulate that with your own computer. So hopefully. But I haven't tried that yet. You
might be able to select certain items you think are relevant if you feel you've got a person who won't cope with so many items on the screen.
Exactly. And we're also going to have a version of the scales, which is just a yes or a no.
Great.
If we feel that the person doesn't respond to that.
That sounds fab.
Yeah.
Lovely. And would you happen to know, Sam Cooper's asking, the rough cost is likely to be of the CAT2? Somebody's already thinking about needing to budget and get funding for it next year. And I'm thinking the same thing ourselves.
I think it will be slightly more expensive than CAT1, I suspect, because it's going to be both print version and online version. I think you're going to be able to buy just a print version. But if you want the bundle, I think there'll be an additional cost, but I'm trying to make sure that it's not prohibitive.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a really timely addition to the suite of assessments. And is it to 2021? Any further advance on that, or is it just?
I'm not saying any more than that.
You're not saying any more
because I'm always over optimistic about when things happen, and of course, what I forget is that very little of it is within my control, because it's all about production and that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
So and I can't do anything, you know. I deliver it to them and then they get on with it, and it takes longer.
Okay, just another question here from Jane Mortley. Will there be a function for people with aphasia to have sentence spoken with the online version if screen share is not used?
Oh, that's a very good idea, Jane. I hadn't thought about it, but I know that definitely we have that with other sections in the CAT. So I will ask our IT person if that's available.
Good. Yeah. Excellent. Okay. And Abby has just asked, could you please share the UCL Plurus link with the chat, please, Kate?
Yes.
You've got a second.
Yes. Okay. Do I have to do that now, or can I do that after the meeting?
Oh, good question. Will it be recorded if it's done after the meeting, Abby? Or is it best to
I'll have a look, Abby. I'll have a look.
For everybody to jot it down now while they're on the call, I guess.
I'll tell you what, Kate, if you go back to your slide, we might just be able to type it in from your slide.
Okay.
I was trying that and I wasn't quick enough.
Yeah, I had to go and I couldn't get it up. I just wanted to
Sorry.
No, it's great. It's in the slides.
Yes, I know. I'm just going back to being able to screen share it now. I've got the right one, and now I will screen share. Going to full view. I went out of full screen. There we go. Coming up. There.
plurus.ucl.ac.uk/therapist.
Oh, goodness me. Sorry.
That's perfect.
Yep.
Therapists. Okay.
Therapists.
That-
Yes.
Yeah.
And then once you're in that bit of the site, you have to choose the home button at the top right hand side, and that takes you to an option, and then you add demo_AIQP as the reference code, and then next. And then you're going to see the AIQ Plus, so the extended version, and you'll see it in participant view.
Oh, that's great.
Great.
Okay.
That's lovely. Thank you so much, Kate. That's so interesting and very exciting to hear about the
Good.
development of that. We'll watch the space for next
Yeah.
year. Good luck with the testing.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Should we give